Hi, and welcome to the Cozy Penguin YouTube channel. Buckle up, because today's story is absolutely wild. We've got a 29-year-old man who's been cheating on his wife for over a year. And his justification? Oh, you'll want to hear this. But before we dive into this absolute train wreck of a story, smash that like button if you're ready for some serious drama analysis. And let me know in the comments below, what's the worst excuse you've ever heard for cheating? Okay, so let's hop into today's story. Am I the asshole for cheating on my wife? Throwaway, because my wife browses Reddit, and she'll know this is about her straight away. First of all, I know I'm not perfect, but please hear me out. I don't know where to start, so I'll just get the elephant in the room out of the way. I, 29 male, have been cheating on my wife, 31 female, for a little over a year now, with another woman, 20 female, that I think I love. My wife and I met in college and dated for about 2 years before I proposed. Things were smooth for almost a year before my wife seemed to change. She was constantly rude, nagging at me for anything and making belittling comments. I began to spend more time at work to avoid her constant negativity. She was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and bipolar disorder. Still, I was sure we'd be able to work through it, so I stayed with her. I believed I still loved her. 2 years after my wife's diagnosis, my dad died in a car crash. While I was distraught, I couldn't help but notice that my wife seemed almost glad. She'd never mentioned an issue with my parents before, but any time I seemed sad about it, she'd say something like, "It's for the best," or "You should get over it soon." My brother, on the other hand, took his loss harder than I did and turned to alcohol. As a favor, I took him in when his landlord turned him out. I work a lot, but my wife owns her own business and often works from home. I wrongingly assumed that I could leave the two of them alone together, but while I was away, they would have sex. I found this out from a neighbor who walked in on them when I was asking for a parcel. I also later found out he had been stealing from us as well. As any sane person would, I kicked him out of my home. I tried to file for divorce, but my wife went through an awful depressive episode, lasting almost a month. I dropped the ideas about a divorce completely. For a while, things seemed to go back to how they were when I was 20. Things were going great, and I was climbing the ranks. We'd just moved into a new house closer to my work. My wife had begun branching out and now owned 2 or 3 shops in the city. She was on a new medication that made her much more of a pleasant person, and our sex life was great. And then we found out she was having a baby. I was ecstatic. I love kids. My wife and I had always wanted a kid, but every time we had tried, it hadn't worked. Soon enough, our son was born. Over the course of his first couple of months, I began to have doubts that he was really my son. I put this off as first kid worries or whatever and continued with my life. Until one evening, my wife sat me down and told me the kid was my brother's. Her reasons were that she'd known I'd always want a kid, and that our DNA was too close for it to make a difference. Never mind the fact that she was sleeping with my brother again. I tried to file for divorce again, but my wife returned to her depressive state. So once again, I dropped it. One night after an argument, I left the house with no intentions of going anywhere, and ended up in a bar. I got talking to a girl, and we had a one-night stand. I couldn't help but think of my wife the whole time, and yet, a week later, I slept with her again. She told me things about herself. She was living with her cousins, she worked 2 jobs to put herself through uni, she felt like she was alone in this world. Our one-night stand became a whole relationship, and I realized that I was cheating on my wife. It became a whole lot easier when I made her my secretary. I don't want to explain many details about our relationship. She was by no means at fault. I didn't tell her I had a wife until a month or so before I gave her the job. I didn't tell her about my son until our first argument. I was spending a lot more time at work, and my wife became very suspicious. She stopped taking her meds, telling me they were clouding her thoughts, and refused to speak with her psychiatrist. Still, she doesn't know about the other woman. Really, I know I'm at fault for a lot of this, and a tragic backstory or whatever doesn't let me off, but I really do think I'm in love with the woman I'm cheating with, and I don't know what to do. TLDR, my wife, who suffers from multiple mental illnesses, has put me through numerous hardships, and now I'm cheating on her. Am I the asshole? Now let's get into my first reactions. So this guy starts the whole thing off with, I know I'm not perfect, which is already a huge red flag. When someone starts off with this, you know something wild is coming. He's been cheating for a year with a 20-year-old, and he's 29 and married to a 31-year-old. But wait, it gets worse. His justification for all of his cheating, his affair, for everything. His wife was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and bipolar disorder, and apparently was constantly nagging him and rude. But here's where my blood starts to boil. When his dad died, he said his wife seemed almost glad and would say things like, "It's for the best." And if that's true, that is genuinely awful to say to your partner when they're dealing with the grief of losing their family member. And then, I cannot stress this enough, his brother moves in and his wife sleeps with the brother who's also stealing from them. So he tries to divorce her, but she goes into a depressive episode, so he stays. And then they have a baby, but plot twist. The baby is actually his brother's. She tells him this casually, saying our DNA was too close for it to make a difference. What the fuck? And after this revelation happens, he meets the 20-year-old at the bar, and they have a one-night stand. And that one-night stand blossoms into a full-blown relationship. He makes her his secretary, because that's not a walking HR violation, and he doesn't tell her he's married for months, and doesn't tell her he has a kid until after their first argument. Wow. Okay, let's unpack everything because there is so much for us to discuss here. First of all, the mental health excuse. Yes, living with someone who has untreated mental health issues is challenging, but mental health is never an excuse to cheat on someone. You communicate, you seek couples therapy, you set boundaries, or you leave. You don't start a secret relationship with someone who's 9 years younger than you. Second of all, the wife's behavior. If, and there's a big if, everything he's saying is true about her being glad about his father's death, sleeping with his brother, then yes, that is absolutely horrible. But here's the thing. This story is told entirely from his perspective, and he's trying to justify the fact that he's cheating on his wife. This is an unreliable narrator alert. Red flags everywhere. Number 3, the power dynamic. A 29-year-old male pursuing a 20-year-old who works 2 jobs to put herself through university. That's a massive power imbalance. Then, he makes her his secretary. This screams manipulation to me. Fourth, the timeline doesn't add up at all. He said he tried to divorce her multiple times, but she got depressive, so he stayed. That's telling me he's either lying about wanting to leave, or using her mental health episode to avoid taking action, while also using that to later justify his affair. Can we just talk about how he couldn't help but think of his wife during his first hookup? That's not romantic, that is guilt. But instead of addressing the guilt he's feeling, he just kept cheating. The most telling part for me, he says the 20-year-old was by no means at fault, but then immediately explains how he lied to her about being married for months. He's painting himself as this tortured soul while actively deceiving multiple women. Okay, let's look at the Reddit comments to see what they have to say. The Reddit community did not hold back. Top comment: you are not in love. You're in lust with someone who doesn't know the real you because you've been lying to her for months. Another user said, your wife may have done terrible things, but that does not give you the right to do terrible things too. You're both toxic. Another one that hits hard. You've complained about your wife's mental health affecting you, but you're actively destroying your mistress's mental health by lying to her about who you are. And my favorite response. You've tried to divorce her twice but stayed because she got sad. Either you're lying about wanting to leave, or you're the weakest person alive. Either way, you're definitely the asshole. 2 more comments I just want to point out before we move on. You're the asshole for how you've treated this new young woman, withholding your life's circumstances until she was firmly entangled, and now she even has to please you to remain employed, and she definitely deserves better than you. Your wife and brother are both assholes in this too, so really, almost everyone sucks here. But I really wanted to make sure somebody addresses the actual victim in this, and it's not you. Love the fact that the person who wrote this story put it in a spin where he is the victim in every situation. And all he's trying to do is move on because his wife's mental health issues are nagging on him and affecting him. But he is choosing to lie to the person that he apparently loves. I wonder why that is. Let's get into the final verdict. This man is absolutely, unquestionably the asshole, and here's why. Number 1, cheating is never justified. I don't care what your partner did. If the relationship is that bad, you leave them. Number 2, he's lying to everyone. His wife doesn't know about the affair, his mistress doesn't know that he was married for the longest time, and I suspect he's lying to us about how bad his wife really is. Number 3, he's using mental health as a weapon, both to justify his cheating and to explain why he couldn't leave. This is entirely disgusting. Number 4, the power dynamics here are all wrong. Boss and secretary, younger and older, financially stable versus struggling student. This isn't love, it's exploitation. And my final point I want to point out, he wants sympathy while taking zero responsibility for his actions. The entire post is in a way of it being poor me, while he's actively hurting multiple women. On the drama scale, this has everything. Cheating, family betrayal, mental health manipulation, and a man who somehow thinks he's the victim in a situation he created. The real tragedy here? That a 20-year-old woman thinks she's in love with a man who's been lying to her from day one. Okay, what do you think? Am I being too harsh here? Or is this guy getting the exact judgment he deserves? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into relationship drama, subscribe for more Reddit reactions every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Remember, partnership over control, always. Until next time, this is Cozy Penguin. Keep it real.